casual video today. If you couldn't tell, I'm going to be sharing my entire Patricia Cornwell collection with you. I recently, as of March, was it March? I think it was March. When did I get these books? What day is it? What year is it? Okay, anyway, rather recently, I went to the book exchange and I got a bunch of Patricia Cornwell books. If you go back, don't do it. Don't do it. But if you were to have gone back, or you were with me from the beginning here on my YouTube channel, you will know that I had a lot of these books. There was a readathon that I did, that there was this like domino challenge, and I lined up all of my Patricia Cornwell books in my kitchen and knocked them over. And it was literally like so many of the books that I'm about to share with you today. So it's crazy. I specifically remember like reading some of these books, showing some of these books, having these books on my bookshelf. And then it was like a couple years ago, I was going through my books, I was unhauling books, and I had a huge stack like this of my Patricia Cornwell books. I was like, you know what? I'm not reading them. I can always repurchase them. And here we are. I have repurchased all of the books. Well, not all of the books, but I'm in the process of collecting the entire Kay Scarpetta series. I have a handy dandy list of the ones that I have, the ones that I need, so that I can take this to the book exchange with me when I go. And then I also decided to pick up another series of hers. It only has like 3 books on it, so we're going to go through that as well. But I thought I would just share my Patricia Cornwell collection with you today. This is also like a book haul of all of the Patricia Cornwell books that I have bought. And by bought, I mean I recently got them at the book exchange, which, if you don't know, is this bookstore that you can take books to, and basically you're doing a trade. You're saying, here's a book I no longer want, I'm giving it to you, and then they give you store credit. And then with that store credit, you can get other books. So the thing about it is that yes, I am purchasing these books because I purchased the other ones. It's all a thing. But what was I going to do with the books anyway? Like drop them off as a donation to like Goodwill, give them to a friend. So this is just a way to, it's like a vicious cycle, you know? I buy books, I read them, I give them to the book exchange, they give me money to buy other books, I buy books, and it's just crazy. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. Did I even say hello to you guys? Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to share my Patricia Cornwell collection with you, if that wasn't evident already. Let's go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna share this series first. This is the, let me look it up. I'm trying to figure it out which series this is. Okay, that didn't help. Does this one help? This one also did not help. Let me look in this one. I'm trying to see what this series is called. It's the, because I wanted to say the Will Trent series, but I know that's a Karen Slaughter series, but that's the only male name series I have in my head. But this is the Andy Brazil series. And like I said, it's only 3 books. Andy Brazil series. Let's do it. The first one is The Hornet's Nest by Patricia Cornwell, obviously. This one came out in 1996 in a city of ambition and pride, a city long ago dubbed the Hornet's Nest of America. A swarming symbol dominates the badge of the police department that protects it. The image of a darting, restless fighter, the whirling dervish of a hornet, like the violence that swirls around Charlotte during a long hot summer. The hornet traces a dark, angry path, touching down unexpectedly, bringing stings of surprise wherever it lands. So Andy Brazil is actually a young reporter for the Charlotte Observer, and he is a sometimes too eager volunteer cop. So that should be kind of funny. But yeah, I've never read any of the books in this series, but this is the first one. The second one, I don't want to show the cover. It is a little offensive. It has a Confederate flag on the front, and that may be upsetting to some people, so I'm not going to show that, but I will show the back cover. That's this one. It looks like this. Southern Cross. It says, in Hornet's Nest, our page-turning satirical novel about crime and police in Charlotte, North Carolina, moved behind the badges of these real-life heroes to uncover flesh and blood characters. And then in this one, takes it even closer to the sometimes zany but always threatening experiences of big city police and a story of corruption, scandal, and robberies that escalate to murder. This time, the setting is Richmond, Virginia, where former Charlotte Police Chief Judy Hammer has been brought by an N.I.J. grant to clean up the police force. Okay, and then the last one in that series is Isle of Dogs. This is probably my favorite cover of this series. And this one, chaos breaks loose when the governor of Virginia orders that speed traps be painted on all streets and highways and warns that speeders will be caught by monitoring aircraft flying overhead. But the eccentric island of Tangier, 14 miles off the coast of Virginia and Chesapeake Bay, responds by declaring war on its own state. And then we follow Judy Hammer, newly installed as the superintendent of the Virginia State Police, and Andy Brazil, a state trooper, and Hammer's right hand and confidant, find themselves at the wit's end as they try to protect the public from the politicians and vice versa in this pitch perfect, darkly comic romp. So that is that one. I'm not really sure if and when I will read this series, but they had all 3 books and they were in really, really good condition. I mean, it looks brand new, like no one read this book. And doesn't she look like Meg Ryan a little bit in this author photo? Also, you will notice something about Patricia Cornwell books. Her author photos are always so different. Like, all of them. This is all the same series and it's all different author photos. Okay, so that is the Andy Brazil series, and like I said, never read that one, but the one that I have read and the one that I recommend is the Kay Scarpetta series. And unfortunately, 3 of the books that I have are this smaller size when all of the rest of them are this size. So even though I have these books, I have Postmortem, All That Remains, and Predator that are all these smaller hardbacks. I want to get them in larger hardbacks, if those even exist. Not sure. Because Scribner was the earlier publisher, then Putnam, and now it's William Morrow. So there's been like a publisher change, and like I said, there's no author photo on this one, but look, another author photo. Oh my gosh. Anyway, okay, so we'll start with the first one in the series. So I'll just tell you like all the books in the series, I'm like, if I have them. So the first book in the Kay Scarpetta series is Postmortem. Now, some of these I have read and some of them I have not. I mean, I'm talking it's been years, like more than 10 years since I've read these books, with like one exception that I can remember. I also did start reading this one for Beth's book club. I got to page like 92 and I like temporarily, not for now, DNF'd it, you know. But anyway, so, okay, let's do it. It's already like 10 minutes into this video and I'm like, oh my God, are people actually gonna watch this? Okay, the first book in the series is Postmortem. This one came out in 1990. So this one is basically introducing Kay Scarpetta, other important characters that are important throughout the series. So Patricia Daniels Cornwell, sure to be a major name in suspense writing. So a serial killer is on the loose in Richmond. 3 women have died, brutalized and strangled in bizarre murders in their own bedrooms. What do they have in common? Nothing, it seems. Not physical type, not occupation, not a particular neighbor. The killer apparently strikes at random. And then we get to know Scarpetta, divorced, caring temporarily for her 10-year-old niece Lucy, a bit leery of emotional involvement, kind of all that. So yeah, that's the first book. The next book, Body of Evidence, I do not have that one. That one came out in 1991, and it probably will be this like smaller hardback size. Next, the third book is All That Remains. This one came out in 1992. So for a while, she was just like 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000. So she's very like consistent. All That Remains is, let's see, these two people left Richmond, Virginia for their North Carolina coast but never arrived. Their Jeep is found at a highway rest area, the keys still in the ignition, belongings undisturbed. And then Kay Scarpetta, Virginia's chief medical examiner, suspects that both Deborah and Fred are already dead. The latest victims in a string of mysterious killings that have occurred over the past 2 years. 4 young couples have perished in similar circumstances, all within a 50-mile radius of Williamsburg. The fourth book, Cruel and Unusual. And this one, it says, in the morgue, Scarpetta has been waiting for Waddle's body. Convicted murderer Ronnie Joe Waddle is pronounced dead in the Commonwealth of Virginia's electric chair. And then Scarpetta's been waiting in the morgue for his body. It's a strange feeling preparing for an autopsy before the subject is dead. But Scarpetta's been here before. She knows the tension of watching the clock as the execution hour draws near. But this man's death isn't the only newsworthy event on this cold December night. 3 hours after 13-year-old Edie Heath got out of a convenience store to buy a can of soup, his nude, grotesquely wounded body is found propped against a dumpster. Very, very interesting. One other thing I want to say about the series as a whole is that you can read them in any order that you want. So if any of them individually sound interesting to you, pick up that book and go from there, because each one has like a different crime, a different mystery that you're solving or that they're solving, but it also has like a story, since like Scarpetta and Lucy and Marino, and there's this other person that I can't think of right now, are all in the story. Things happen in that storyline that is best started from the beginning, but also you can just start piecing it all together as you read whatever books that you want. So read them in whatever order you want. That's my suggestion. I just think more people need to be picking up her book. All right, next up, The Body Farm. This is the one that I have reread in the last few years, just because it's always been one that has like stuck out in my mind, because I actually know what a body farm is now. When I first read this, I had no idea, and my mind was just opened up to like a whole new world, and now it's a dazzling place. But this one is literally brand new. Like, it's still stiff and the pages are stiff, and I don't know, this one is my favorite. It's a puzzling and terrifying crime reminiscent of the work of serial killer Temple Galt, who has long eluded Kay Scarpetta in the FBI's investigative support unit in Quantico, Virginia, where Scarpetta consults as a forensic pathologist. At the request of the North Carolina authorities, Scarpetta and her colleagues Benton Wesley and Pete Marino, fly to the mountains near Asheville to assist. They find a mother in mourning and an investigation in disarray. So that's that one. All right, next up is from Potter's Field. This one came out in 1995. Christmas Eve in Central Park Temple, Brooks Galt stands over his latest victim, washing his bloody hands in the snow. Oh, so was this like a crossover one? I think it might be. Yeah. So these two kind of deal with the same serial killer. So maybe you do want to read this one first and then go into this one. Very, very interesting. Cause of Death, released in 1996. This is like shiny, like kind of like a gold thing. Look, oh my gosh, I saw this in like, this is how gas station receipts used to look. Do you see this? Back in 1996 when this book released, the receipt is still in there. So I think the same person had this book the whole time. Let's see. New Year's Eve and the final murder scene of Virginia's bloodiest year since the Civil War takes Scarpetta 30 feet below the Elizabeth River's icy surface. A scuba diver is dead, an investigative reporter who was a favorite at the medical examiner's office. All right, next is Unnatural Exposure. This one, Kay Scarpetta is newly returned from Dublin, where she was called in to examine the remains of a murder victim whose limbs and head were expertly severed, a signature of a cunning serial killer on the loose again after an 8-year sabbatical when the same killer strikes again. So see, that's the thing. A lot of her books follow like serial killers and stuff like that. So if that's your thing. And then this one, it kind of reminds me of this cover a little bit. I think it's just like the color scheme of it. But anyway, Point of Origin is next. 1998 it released. Okay, this novel pits Virginia's chief medical examiner against an audacious and wily killer who uses fire to mask his crimes. And when Scarpetta learns that her old nemesis, Carrie Gretchen, is somehow involved, the investigation gets personal and tragedy strikes closer to home. Woo! Oh, also, I should be showing you these author photos. Look at these. Do you see how, like, she literally looks different? Like this, she kind of looks the same, but she's wearing different outfits. So, like, and then there's this one. And then there's this one. And this one. They're all so different. Okay. All right, next up, Black Notice from 1999. I don't know if you can tell, but it looks like there's like a wolf or something. I don't know. It's probably in the synopsis. Oh, another author photo. Like, how is this the same person? Now Cornwell delivers a high-stakes Kay Scarpetta novel with an intrigue that will take Kay an ocean's length away from home. The nightmare begins when a cargo ship arrives at Richmond's deepwater terminal from Belgium. Is discovered to be transporting a locked, sealed container holding the decomposed remains of a stowaway. Then we have this author photo for The Last Precinct. Oh, so this is like, we enter the last precincts through the reverberating aftershocks of Black Notice. The nightmare perpetuated on Scarpetta's doorstep continues as she discovers that the so-called werewolf murders may have extended to New York City and into the darkest corners of her past. Then we have Blowfly, which this is probably like one of my favorite covers because it has like this, it's a matte cover, but then it has this like shiny blowfly back there. And then these are holographic letters, but do you see the fly too? And then we have a new author photo, of course. Blowfly came out in 2003. In Blowfly, Scarpetta stands at the threshold of a new life after her work as Virginia's chief medical examiner has come to a jarring end. Close of The Last Precinct, she knew she would have to leave Richmond if she were to find any peace. So there's that one. And then let's see, then came Trace, and the whole thing is holographic, as you can see. Another author photo. So in this one, now freelancing in South Florida, Scarpetta returns to the city that turned its back on her 5 years ago. She travels to Richmond, Virginia at the odd behest of the recently appointed chief medical examiner who claims that he needs her help. When she arrives, however, she finds that nothing is as expected. Her former lab seems neither as organized nor as well run as it once was. The inept current chief is driven by an agenda he will not reveal. Ooh, so she's not gonna like that too much. All right, next up is Predator. It came out in 2005. I did get the little edition. This is the other little one that I have. Oh, and we have yet another author photo. I know this is what the cover looks like of the large hardback, so I am in the market for that. In this one, now freelancing with the National Forensic Academy in Florida digs into a case more bizarre than she has ever faced. One that has produced not only unusual physical evidence, but also tantalizing clues about the inner workings of an extremely cunning and criminal mind. She and her team, Pete Marino, Benton Wesley, and her niece Lucy, track the odd connections between several horrific crimes and the people who are the likely suspects. Is the Book of the Dead. It came out in 2007. So we did skip from 2005 to 2007 with Book of the Dead. Not a fan of this cover. See how it's like a cover within a cover type thing? I have been talking for an extremely amount of time. Okay, so the Book of the Dead is the morgue log, the ledger in which all cases are entered by hand. For Kay Scarpetta, however, it is about to acquire a new meaning. Fresh from her bruising battle with a psychopath in Florida, Scarpetta decides it's time for a change of pace, not only personally and professionally, but also geographically. Moving to the historic city of Charleston, South Carolina, she opens a unique private forensic pathology practice, one in which she and her colleagues, including Pete Marino and her niece Lucy, offer expert crime scene investigation and autopsies to communities lacking local access to competent death investigation and modern technology. All right, I have one more stack to get through. Okay, next up is Scarpetta. This is a chunky boy. Also, new author photo. I didn't show that one, so that one's different as well. Okay, Scarpetta. These two, well, actually the next few are quite chunky. Scarpetta, for example, is 500 pages, and also it has some really cool end papers. Some of her books, the newer ones, do. Also, I had this book in mass market paperback when I first moved to this area like 13 years ago, and I was reading it. So I do remember reading this within the last at least 13 years. Okay, so this one is Scarpetta. And let's see, leaving behind her private forensic pathology practice in Charleston, South Carolina, she takes an assignment in New York City, where the NYPD has asked her to examine an injured patient on Bellevue's hospital's psychiatric prison ward. The handcuffed and chained patient, Oscar Bain, has specifically asked for her, and when she literally has her gloved hands on him, he begins to talk, and the story he has to tell turns out to be one of the most bizarre she's ever heard. All right, next up, the Scarpetta Factor. This one, I think she's also in New York still, but see, this is another like really pretty end papers, and then yet again a different author photo. She does a lot of research for her books, and although some are dated because like the first one is written in 1990, or even written before that, it was published in 1990, you can tell that the passage of time with like new technology and stuff like that. If you follow her on Instagram or like go to her website, or I've seen like other videos of her like always going off doing things that she talks about in her books so she can be like super accurate with everything. I love that. Anyway, it's the week before Christmas. A tanking economy has prompted Dr. Kay Scarpetta, despite her busy schedule and her continuing work as the senior forensic analyst for CNN, to offer her services pro bono to New York City's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. Port Mortuary. Very different cover. There we are. And yet, you know it's coming. Another author photo. At the beginning of her professional career, when she accepted a scholarship from the Air Force to pay off her medical school debt, Scarpetta found herself ensnared in a gruesome case of what seemed to be vicious, motivated hate crimes against 2 Americans in South Africa. Now, more than 20 years and many career successes later, her secret military ties have drawn her to Dover Air Force Base, where she has been immersed in a training fellowship to master the art of CT-assisted virtual autopsy, a procedure the White House has mandated that she introduce to the private sector. Red Mist, new author photo. Oh, interesting. Oh, look at that one. That's cool. And then I was going to show you the end papers on this one, and it is shiny. It's very like metallic-y. So that's that one. All right, let's see. Scarpetta is driving through Savannah's low country on her way to the Georgia prison for women. She's agreed to meet an inmate there, a convicted sex offender, and the mother of a vicious and diabolically brilliant killer. Against the advice of her husband, she's determined to hear this woman out and continue on her quest to find out exactly what happened to her former deputy chief, murdered 6 months before. Next we have The Bone Bed. This one is also rather chunky. This is the end papers. This is the author photo. And let's see, a woman has vanished while digging a dinosaur bone bed in the remote wilderness of Canada. That sounds interesting. Next is Dust, and another author photo. And this is the end papers of this one. When I had my original copy of Dust, I actually got it as a Christmas present from my mother-in-law, and it was a signed edition of the book. But of course, remember, I got rid of all my books, so I no longer have a signed edition of Dust, but I had it at one time. Massachusetts Chief Medical Examiner Kay Scarpetta has just returned from working on one of the worst mass murders in U.S. history. Next is Flesh and Blood. This one came out in 2014. It's back to being normal size. A new author photo. This is when she went from, I think this is when she went from Putnam to William Morrow in this one, I think. Yes. So she went from Scribner to Putnam, and then this is her first William Morrow release. Anyway, so here's the author photo for that one, and then here is the end papers, and let's do a quick synopsis here. It's a sunny morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and also Dr. Kay Scarpetta's birthday. She's about to head to Miami for a vacation when she notices 7 pennies on a wall behind her home. Is this a kid's game? And if so, why are all of the coins dated 1981 and so shiny that they could be newly minted? Okay. It's a mystery. This one came out in 2015, Depraved Heart. This cover is so trippy. Look, do you see those little things like moving? The whole cover is like that. And this is the author photo we have on the back. And then end papers are just this weird thing right here, which is actually a picture of her. You see, she's standing right there. But I don't know why it's like this weird, I don't know. I'm not a fan. Anyway, Dr. Kay Scarpetta is working a highly suspicious death scene in a historic home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when an emergency alert sounds on her phone. A video link lands in her text messages, immediately begins playing, and it seems to be from her niece, Lucy. But how can it be? It's clearly a surveillance film of Lucy taken almost 20 years ago. Yeah, after Depraved Heart is Chaos, that came out in 2016, but I don't have that one. And then Autopsy, which was her release from last year. I just got this one at the book exchange a couple of days ago, so I had gotten all of the other ones like one day, and then I got this just recently. So this one came out last year, and I'm not really a fan of this cover. I don't know what they're doing to her covers. I felt like her covers were so like cooler back then, but anyway, no author photo. I also don't like that because she's inside this time. But it's been kind of like a classic for so long to have her photo on the back that I just kind of want them to go back to that. So times are changing. I'm not sure if I'm on board, but anyway, and we do have a picture on the end pages here. But let's read about this one. Scarpetta has come almost full circle, returning to Virginia, the state where she launched her storied career as the chief medical examiner. Finding herself the new girl in town once again after being away for many years, she's inherited both an overbearing secretary and a legacy of neglect and potential corruption. So that is that one. I am so like, I really do want to read these books, but they're not like on my TBR for now because I know I'm not going to make them a priority, but it's really nice to like have my collection going. Like I said, I am missing a few, and I do have some of those smaller hardback editions that I want to look for the larger hardback editions, but I'm just going to be looking at like the book exchange, thrift stores, things like that. Yeah, that's my Patricia Cornwell collection. These are all like crime fiction, following serial killers, solving murders. But I like the like technology that's woven in with the forensic, you know, aspect of the story, and getting to know the characters over a long period of time. And now that I have them, I do want to read them like in order, because when I first started reading these books, it was when I was very young and I was just picking them up at the library, and because my mom was reading the series, you know, and we were just picking up which ones were available. So I've read some, I haven't read others, and so I've never got the story like start to finish. So that is my hope. I mean, I don't have some of the books, so I will be skipping or whatever until I find them. But yeah, that's my collection. I absolutely love it. And even if I never read these books, I'm still going to keep them as part of my collection, and I'm never going to get rid of them again. Anyway, if you have somehow made it to this portion of the video without being completely bored out of your freaking mind, I appreciate you. And that means that you were interested in these books and what they were about. I tried not to give like too much away, but like obviously I had to give some stuff away. But I hope you try at least like one of her books. I don't necessarily recommend Postmortem because I did kind of DNF it because it was boring. I don't know. Where would I start? Start with The Body Farm. That's where you should start. And that is book number 5 in the series. So anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day or night. And I'll see you guys again in another video very soon. Bye guys.